Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to your Friday HSM Hangout. My name is Jordan Roberts. This week is super special because we are going to be digging into the software and covering some topics that we don't normally cover. We've got a very special guest. His name is John Saunders. He is the YouTube rock star. You're probably already subscribed to his channel, but if you're not, please go to NYC CNC right now on YouTube and click the subscribe button. John, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jordan. Can you guys see my screen?
We can, but before we get into your presentation, I want to ask a couple of questions. And as always, we do have Al in the background, so product manager for the HSM. We've got Wayne. We've got a whole bunch of technical people in the background. So guys, remember, this is live. So as we're going through stuff and John's sharing some tips and tricks, if something doesn't make sense, submit your question in the chat bar, and we'll get those questions handled as fast as possible. As we kick off here, I want to understand a couple of things about our audience today. First thing, have you been to Autodesk University? Do you know what it is? Get your votes in. The faster we get through this process, the faster we'll get back into the software. Thanks so much for voting rapidly, everyone. We do appreciate that. And take a look at this, John. Pretty interesting distribution. Now, I know at AU last year, you were there, you were teaching a class. Anyone could show up and learn how to program a CNC machine. You want to tell us a little bit about what you did there?
Yeah, sure. It was a chance to do something hands-on, not just to hide behind the. Everybody's a hero in CAM, but it's when you actually press cycle start that the results actually start happening. So we went through soup to nuts and sort of closing that gap between finishing up CAM, posting out code, walking up to a machine, setting your work coordinate system, setting tool heights, setting up a part, work holding and fixturing, and actually making parts. And I think it's pretty cool because we had a number of folks who had never run machines before, and they were within a few hours, making a part and flipping it over in a set of soft jaws and coming off with a completed Fusion F keychain.
That's awesome.
And Jordan, I saw there that 30% of the people said, how do I get there? So I think it's worth pointing out, John, he was able to come and we covered it because he taught a class. So maybe there's some people on the call, and I'm going to pick on you, Seth, and some of the other forum guys. Get with me. Let's see if there's a class that you can educate the users. That's one way to get there. Curtis just finished up a contest for showing what you're doing in Fusion, and what the winner of that contest will end up going. And I'd look for more of those contests in the future. So we've got some ways to get you there and actually cover the cost.
And I just want to throw out, as somebody, I had no clue what AU was until I went, and it was something I didn't know I needed, because never have I had a chance to sit and spend 3 days surrounded by this phenomenal, there were literally hundreds of classes around advanced CAM talks, production machining, surface finishes. It was just incredible to walk into classrooms and take these hour-long expert-led seminars.
Yeah, huge value. So definitely make sure that you keep an eye out for that. And then the way that you find out about some of these challenges that can win you a trip to AU is by following the Autodesk HSM and the Fusion Instagram handles and getting involved with the social media channels. So definitely tag us in your posts when you're cutting stuff and you've been using the HSM platform. We want to see it. We want to see it on social. We want to give you some praise for that. So right here we're looking at a distribution of the experience level. Pretty even distribution today, guys. We've got everyone from brand new to a couple of years, but no level 70s. So maybe next week we'll get a couple level 70s.
Jordan, that is absolutely not true.
Seth Fedor.
Seth is on the call. He's an absolute master on the forums, and if he's not a level 70, I don't know who is. So Seth, you are a level 70.
We'll call him Modest Seth. Modest Seth today. Here I want to understand what industries you guys are supporting. Again, in the chat window, if you're not being represented, let us know. We want to understand. A lot of times this helps us get a better understanding of your specific challenges. Great. Thanks for everybody voting so rapidly. And look at this distribution, guys. 60% in the other. So for everyone that was in the other, please let us know what that is. Appreciate it. couple more questions, and then we'll jump right into the presentation here. I want to understand what your role is at the company. Are you the person wearing all the hats, or do you have one specific hat to wear? Just let us know. Great. Thanks so much. You guys are awesome. And look at this. No real surprise here. So we will keep moving along. And this is a great question. We just started asking it. I want to understand what's most likely to drive growth in your business as we look at the new year. A lot of different changes out there in the atmosphere. Where is the growth going to come from? What's going to drive those expansion plans? You know. Okay, great. Everybody, look at this. So, you know, 2 3-axis milling. We got some positional stuff going on. Some true 4 and 5. Got the water jet. Awesome. So thanks so much for voting, everybody, so rapidly. Again, super excited. John Saunders, go out to his YouTube channel right now. Click that subscribe button. John, what do you have for us today?
So I thought I'd talk about what we've been up to the past sort of 3 months, which was buying our first VMC, or vertical machining center. It was something that I've been really spending a lot of time on over the past 6 months, but in some respects it's kind of been 10 years in the making. So I want to talk about kind of the process of buying that and the options and what we did and didn't do and learn, getting it here and getting it set up. All the stuff that nobody tells you that I wish I had known or did learn or had people help me out with along the way. And then finally, you know, obviously the goal is to do 2 things, make money and make parts. And so how we're doing that right now, I've got a job shop job and a production job that I thought I'd just kind of walk through the cam and share with what we're doing, but then maybe I'll even get some good feedback from you guys on what we could do better. So my story is, can you guys see my screen, I assume?
Yeah, you're looking good. I'm seeing Ohio to Babson to New York to Ohio.
So I just show this because it kind of mentioned or focuses on the fact that I'm not a self-taught, or excuse me, I am a self-taught machinist. I grew up in Ohio. I went to Babson College just outside of Boston, which is a school known for its entrepreneurship program. Lived in New York City for about 10 years, which is why I had the YouTube name NYCCNC, and have since moved back with my wife and family to Ohio, where I now am a full-time maker and somewhat of a machinist. This is my second New York City apartment. We moved into this one because I wanted to have a dedicated machine shop. So this was everything. I mean, I was living in hog heaven here. I had a little mini lathe and my tag, and you can look on the floor. You'll see grinders and diacro sheet metal stuff and a bandsaw. I made do with this for quite a while as I just started learning. And you know, when I started this, I didn't know what an end mill was or a Bridgeport, and well, here's our shop now. Keep in mind, Ohio real estate is much more affordable than New York City, so we're in a bigger shop now. A lot of our story has been focused around the Tormach milling machines, and as you can see a couple of them here in this picture, which I still use and love, but that picture is now updated with this guy. So we needed a bigger machine, and we needed one that could really handle some production level stuff. So we ended up going with a Haas VM3. We did a YouTube video where we actually talked through our decision-making process, which I think there were some good takeaways. We were pretty close to buying a different brand, different manufacturer's machine, an Okuma, and really trying to understand it's not just the tech sheet of the machine that makes the machine the right fit for you. It's how it fits into what you're trying to do as a company. And for me, one of the takeaways was knowing that hopefully, knock on wood, we'll end up with some more machines, whether that's drill mills or lathes or maybe even a 5-axis. And the thought that maybe those could all be across one controller with the Haas Controls is something that was attractive to me, as well as the level of service. And for me, it's kind of funny, but Haas kind of got what we did, and we hit it off, whereas some of the other manufacturers, one of them literally said, we'd prefer that you not film our machine. And I just thought, well, we're not a good fit then. So that's, we've got this in, end of November, so really it's been like drinking out of a fire hose. We as a company do 4 things. We run a job shop, we run our YouTube channel, we host CNC training classes here in Zanesville, Ohio, where folks come and learn fusion and learn how to run machines, and we make some of our own products. Those products I will shamelessly plug here. a DeWalt chop saw base, a mini pallet to hold parts, Bridgeport to power drawbar, and so forth. Those are all available at SaundersMachineWorks.com.
Hey,
But
John, if I can just jump in for a second, I don't think it's a lot of your presentation, but I think it's well worth noting. A lot of users think, well, I'm not going to do something unless I can go big. And I think it was exciting at the beginning of your presentation. You showed you started with a little machine on your desk and got used to machining. You got a Tormach, which is a great garage workhorse,
right.
and really got you into machining, and now you've got a Haas. And each one of those machines plays a role, and I don't think anybody should belittle any of them, because they each play a very excellent role in the whole learning process. Oftentimes you talk to users and like, I don't want to do it, machines are too expensive, but there's a way to get there, and there's a progression. I'm glad you showed it.
Yeah, we do YouTube videos called a Chip Break series where we talk about kind of business life, and I'll just share, I'm pretty open with this stuff. You know, we've grown incredibly slowly over a really long period of time, and look, by all means, I had a day job for a long time that helped support as I learned, but we saved up cash to buy the Tormach, and then we got another Tormach, and then we used the Tormachs to save up the cash to buy the Haas. So for me, being a non-trained machinist, I never had the confidence to take big bets. So it felt pretty darn good to pay for a machine like a Haas out of earnings from the shop. And yeah, it means you grow a lot slower, but it's kind of my style. This is our newest product, which are full-size fixture plates for Tormach milling machines. So made on the Haas, but for Tormachs, and I'm super proud of these things. There's some really cool stuff we're doing to get these things made with some pretty, I think, ridiculously good surface finishes and accuracy. These actually just got sent out to anodize, but I wanted to snap a picture before they come back. But enough talking about me. Let's talk about if you guys are ever considering moving up or just general stuff. One of the first things I'll talk about, the slab. I found out too late in the game that I unfortunately only have a 5-inch slab. You really want a 6-inch slab, and the fun thing about concrete is it gets stronger with age, and the inverse of that means it didn't make sense with 30 days until delivery to cut up my concrete pad and pour a thicker one. But I'll tell you, I will probably still do that. I think I want to wait a year and see how we learn how our shop evolves, but I'll probably pick a new place for the machine, saw cut it, pour a slab, let it cure for 3 or 4 months, and then move the machine over. 5 inches isn't bad. It's been poured for 20 or 30 years. I think somebody has told me once that concrete at the Hoover Dam is still curing to this day. But slab matters, period. Don't ignore that. Slow rapids. So slow down your 10. So some of this stuff kind of jumps around, but the first thing I did when I started running the machine, modern machines go 800 or 1500 inches per minute. First thing I did was just park the thing on 25% rapids because I don't need to be going 100%, and I really didn't want to crash that machine. New controllers are hard. Don't underestimate that. And that's not a knock on any controller, although I will admit I've spent some time with Fanucs, and I find some of them are very difficult to jump in and out of. And, we're a tiny shop, but I've already got multiple different controllers between a Plasma, Tormach, Lathe, Haas. So if you think about it, do you want a Mitsubishi, a Siemens, a Fanuc, multiple different Fanucs, Haases? They're hard to understand and remember, and there's some nuances that help you make really good parts that are even harder to learn across all of them. I'll give Fusion a compliment in that it does a good job of letting us handle the way we post out and so forth, but still, it's something you don't discount the value of a good controller and the complexity of controllers. The way we've been running code is we'll single block it at first, or single block it in critical stages, like when we're ramping or linking in. Then I'll turn on what's called option stop, so it'll run through that tool, not operation, but everything with that same tool, and then it'll wait for me to hit cycle start. What that lets me do is I can walk away from the machine. I'd only do this if I'm comfortable, obviously, with the work holding and the cam and the tool, but I can walk away, do something else, and then it'll wait for me. We've been pushing the envelope with some things like Sandvik through spindle drills where we're going 15,000 RPMs, 300 inches a minute with a half-inch drill, no pecking, and I want to have the machine wait for me to be there when I run that, if anything, just to have fun and watch it.
So maybe I should jump in because I don't think you can overstress this enough. the bulk of your crashes, and if anybody wants to jump in on this in the chat, go ahead, are going to happen where there's operator error. That operator error is going to happen when you didn't pick up your work offset right, you didn't pick up a tool right, you have the wrong tool in the carousel, these operator error things. So what John is showing is by single blocking at the beginning, you have a chance to validate that you're coming down to the right height before just wrapping down in. The toolpath motion in between the tool changes and operations, we better as a CAM company get that part of it right, and highly unlikely that's where you're going to have your crash. And then that option that stops says, let me be there again for the next one. So this is very, very helpful hint, and I hope everybody fully understands the value of that.
The only thing I would respectfully add to what Al just said is that when you're moving from a Haas or from a Tormach to a Haas, let me tell you, ends up that when you're dumping 10, 15 horsepower into a part through a tool, work holding is really important. And a friend of mine who just bought a VF4SS Haas, unfortunately within the first few weeks threw a part because he didn't realize how much more horsepower you're putting into it, and it ripped it out. So otherwise, what Al said is right. Normally, you crash when you're calling up a tool or starting an operation.
So that I would argue that that is also an operator error and not applying enough clamping force and a value to something like adaptive clearing. You see that cut start, you know what the overall load part once the cut starts, and then things kind of normalize after that. But again, I'm very glad you brought up the work holding. People often forget how important it is and how easy it is to throw apart or pull a tool out of the collet chuck, all these sorts of things.
Yeah, and that's kind of
increase in power.
That's kind of my overall theme. I mean, it was a necessary step, and I love the machine, but everything gets more complicated. It's all the more important to make sure your parts are deburred so you don't have a burr that prevents you from having a good work holding, or we'll get into more. Stuff like that. One thing I don't like on the Haas controller, which will never change, but I don't like it, is you have to put a decimal point after every value. So to enter 1 inch, it's not one enter, it's 1 dot. And Tormach never had to do that. So again, that's kind of a weird thing where I have goofed once, I will admit, because I added 1, which I think ends up being 1/10,000,000th or 10 millionths instead of 1 inch. And that's operator error that will cause you to crash a machine.
So why don't we do this? Keep going with your conversation, but there's a lot of users that have a lot of experience on the call. Send it in the comments, and later on we'll bring up some of what you have to say in your learnings. So
awesome.
Open conversation here.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm very open, folks. I'd love to do some Q&A here and see what you guys want to know. It's been so helpful to have a relationship with the tooling vendor. Mine happens to be Sandvik because I like the guy, but having him come in and help me tool up and understand what are good fits and where we should spend money on expensive tools and drills, and where I'm very honest with them. Sometimes I say, hey, I can't justify or afford that. The tool that costs a quarter as much seems to do just as good of a job, and he gets that. But having a person that I can talk to, and all of those tooling companies, Mitsubishi, Iscar, et cetera, tend to be very, very liberal with demos and getting you sample tooling because they want your business. So look, they're there for that reason. Take advantage of it, but try to build a personal relationship with one. Water quality. Fun fact, this actually matters a ton. The city water in Zanesville, Ohio, where I'm living, happens to be super hard, and Haas actually has a really good YouTube video on preparing and how to deal with coolant in your machine. But long story short, as your water evaporates, the minerals that make water hard stay behind, so your water in your machine will get harder over time, which will cause bad things to happen to very expensive machines that I'd like to stay nice and pretty. So I just finished today setting up our reverse osmosis system, which ended up being much more of an undertaking than I had planned. But getting good water quality into a machine that should last for years is really important. And nobody tells you that when you're buying your first VMC. In terms of options, we get a ton of questions from folks about what should I buy. It's tough because it all depends on what you're doing and your budget, but what I would say is focus on things that cannot be ever upgraded in the field. For me, the two biggest things there were getting the most spindle RPMs I could afford and buying the biggest tool changer that I could afford, because for me, I want this thing to run as lean and mean as it can, which means, trying to do some lights out machining when I go home for the night, and just having it run throughout the day while I'm doing other stuff. And to me, that meant having the 40 tool changer. Post processor, make sure you've got, Al? Nope. Post processor, make sure you've got a post ready for what you're trying to do. A big shout out, I think it's been a bit of a game changer that when you download Fusion 360, you get, 50 or more default post processors for everything from Tormach to Fanuc to Haas. And we're using the default Haas. It's been great for our standard 3-axis stuff, and we did get a little trunnion, which I've only played with once, and the post, I think I had to get a little bit of a tweaked post because we have a weird trunnion, but basically the default post there works for 5th axis, which is something that I think costs thousands of dollars if you've got to buy normally for something bespoke.
And just as a total aside, if you don't know about it, cam.autodesk.com/posts, there's a far more complete library there where you can see the history of what's been updated on them and search for machine-specific posts. I just wanted to throw that in this man.
So checking tram and level, I think I misunderstood how the world works and how gravity works, which is I just kind of assume that you write this big check and you get this beautiful big vertical machining center and they deliver it and level it and you can then make phenomenally perfect parts. It ends up that that's not how it works. Machines settle and slabs, your concrete settles, the level change, the tram changes, temperature of the room, humidity of the room. As you run the machine, heat is created by the motors, spindle motors, axis motors, and coolant heats up, and that changes your cast iron. And folks, this stuff is real. I'm talking, thousandths of an inch. And so just you have to be aware of that. We're considering trying to get ours re-leveled even after just 2 months because I know it has moved a little on me. And I also, a friend of mine bought, two of my friends actually have bought high-end Japanese machines, and both have had some interesting problems with this stuff. One of them is more just temperature levels. The other one is more slab related. So don't just assume you can plop down a machine and have it make, if it's got 40 inches of travel, have it make a 40-inch, perfectly square and perpendicular and flat part. Likewise, when you drive a forklift 5 feet in front of the machine, guess what? It moves. If you don't believe me, put a tense indicator between your spindle and your table and drive your forklift 10 feet in front of your machine. It will deflect. So may not be a big deal, but something to be conscious of. When we pour our new slab, we'll probably do some isolation between our main slab and the machine slab. I've been trying to do more with fewer tools. I find that it's harder for me as a small shop to afford and organize lots of custom tools. So for instance, one thing I've done is I've moved away from lots of different drill sizes, and I've got 2 different really high-end through spindle coolant drills, and I tend to be poking holes through with those drills and then interpolating, usually with the bore operation or maybe an adaptive, to blow out that hole to the diameter I want. Saves me having to add more tools in my carousel. Obviously takes an additional tool change, but that's the balance of what's more important.
Hey John, we got a comment here from Sean, who's also got a VF2. He said he feels most of your pain. He wanted to mention that he neglected to think about how many chips you're producing, and just having a small chip auger was not enough to get all the chipsets that he was producing. So chip evacuation.
I thought, oh here, that was on my, I've skipped that, sorry. What to do with all those chips?
Good, we have the same problem.
No, seriously, folks, that's not funny. I'm filling up one of those 33-gallon Home Depot Rubbermaids before lunchtime most days now. What the hell do you do with all of that? I hadn't put in my budget to buy a chip compactor. We've been actually toying around with trying to make one for fun, but I find there's less time these days to do fun little projects. But seriously, we found our local scrapyard will give us these 1,500-pound capacity, really thick cardboard boxes that sit on pallets. So we've got 3 of them in our shop, and we have to run them down there. We don't do enough volume yet to have them come pick up from us. But, I mean, no one wants to talk about this, but you got to deal with that.
You know what, this sounds like a fun contest. I'm seeing comments about how many chips people produce a day. We should have a contest one of these days for who produces the most chips.
Well, the question is why. I mean, right now I am unfortunately dealing with making some 1-inch stuff, and I'm buying 1 1/4 because it's easier for work holding, but I'm trying to change that going forward to make, obviously chips are a bad thing because it's more to recycle and it's more spindle time. Haas comes with this little iPhone app called Haas Connect. It's awesome. When the machine has a problem, it text messages me. It's incredible. It's great. I do prefer having a wired internet connection to the machine, an Ethernet, a Cat5. I've had lots of people tell me wireless is great, and I just couldn't disagree more. Every time you have a reset on your wireless router, you replace it or upgrade it or change it or something happens, it's just a hassle factor. Run a Cat5 over to it and you're done with it. I have learned the hard way that you need to be using torque wrenches. We actually had some jaw lift on our orange vices, which I was blown away by because those are really high quality and expensive vices, and I was pretty upset for about a day. And then I realized it's my fault. You have to take those half 13 cap screws to 65 foot-pounds, which I was not doing, and your problem is solved. So now what I've done is we're using dedicated torque wrenches on the 3/4 inch for the vise itself, for the cap screws that secure things down, and we're getting much more consistent parts because every time we touch a fastener on the machine, vice screw or anything, it's torqued to consistently. Better measuring tools, we had to just pick up a taller linear gauge because we're making bigger parts. When we're trying to make better parts, you've got to figure out a way to measure those. Was not something that I had anticipated we would need so quickly, but there's no point in having a really expensive machine and doing higher-end work if you can't prove it or check it. You can't have just one. This really stinks. I just kind of realizing this over the past 3 or 4 weeks, but the business model around running a VMC seems to really be the fact that nowadays one person can probably run 2 or 3 pretty easily. So I don't know what that means for us because I can't afford a second one, but I would really, really like to justify a second one sometime in the next year or two, because I think that's at least the sweet spot is some ratio of one operator or one machinist to a couple. And then again, kind of reiterating, they aren't just perfect. TRAM matters and it will change and you got to check it. Let's switch over to Fusion though and CAM side of things. So real quick, templates, libraries, probing, angles, vices, simulation. I may come back to this slide. But what I thought I'd do is walk through a template file, how we're running one of our production parts, this guy right here, and then a job shop job that I am running next week, but I think most of the CAM is all done. So templates are phenomenal. If you don't know what a template is, this is an example of where I'll create a new setup, and I have errors in my Fusion 360, and I'll throw Al under the bus here. I have been trying to get these fixed, and I still can't get them fixed. But yours should default to something like fixed size box. But basically create a setup, right-click, create from template, and I'll pick, in this case, I'm running my VM3 aluminum template. So that's all fine and dandy. It creates a bunch of preset operations. Anyone on the phone here who has used the software will probably understand that, but the great thing here is beyond just feeds and speeds, they can save additional really important parameters. Like for instance, I, in a 3D adaptive, always like having flat area detection checked, and by having it saved as a template, it's able to do that, and it's able to save my default stock settings, stock delete, etc. The problem with templates that I found over the past year and a half is when you want to update a template, how do you do that? And my antidote or my solution to that is I've got a dedicated template file here somewhere in I copied into this webinar folder. I think it's up at the top, but it's this just widget. The part means nothing, and I can change the part as I need it. But this Fusion file is where I keep my template recipes. So let's say I realize my half-inch tool for my 3D adaptive strategy on the Haas. Let's say I want to just say, let's move that up to a 25% radial cut going forward. I change it here, and then I click all these, store as template, and I'll pick my VM3 aluminum template, and that's just a way for me to manage my templates. So right now I only have Tormach and Haas standard 2.5 dimension parts, and then I've got my Tormach soft jaws, and I actually got a Haas soft jaw as well, but it's in my, I copied these files off to the webinar folder the other day when I was getting ready for this. But it's nice. Every time I make a set of soft jaws, it's an adaptive, a contour, and then an edge break chamfer. Boom. Saves me a ton of time, and it gives me the confidence, especially with the Haas, because I'm pushing tools harder, and I want to know, for instance, little things like tool 17 for me in my Haas is a 3/8 inch standard end mill. Tool 18 is the identical end mill, but is only used for finishing. So that end mill is going to stay sharper and cleaner longer, which is going to help me hold tighter tolerances on my part. So I highly recommend you guys do something like this with a template master. So here's our production part. The orange vise I pulled in, and if you guys don't know, data panel, scroll down all the way to the bottom. I think it's CAM samples. You've got a ton of stuff that they're updating. I think they even added stuff this morning, but work holding tutorial.
So there's a machine tables folder that just got added this morning. So your Haas tables, Tormach tables, Pocket MC tables just got added this morning. But keep going.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So again, there's a lot to be said for modeling everything you're doing to, again, avoid crashes and just see. For me now, I'm trying to figure out how to maximize my table, but it still be able to get face mills in and out of places and avoid crashing. So having the confidence to quickly show that all is huge. I thought this would be a cool example though, because this single CAD component here is generating, when I post out, if I click my two operations and hit post, change it back to the Haas, it's actually giving me 4 parts at the same time, which I think is pretty darn cool. For me at least, this is a huge step up in CAM nerdiness. I've got
Hey, John,
G50.
can you do, maybe you're going to explain it, and if you don't, then I'll butt in.
We got G54, 55, 56, and 57 somewhere. Go ahead, Al. What do you want to explain?
So actually, you're pointing it. Go back to your G code because you're pointing it out right there. What you might have noticed is it was bouncing across all at the very beginning. So here's why, and many people miss it. So they were going to hit OK here, and in the post dialog, there's a checkbox that said minimize tool changes, reorder to minimize tool changes. And what that did is minimize tool changes across setups. So you may have noticed in the posted code, he faced at G54, then he faced at G55, and then he faced at G56. And that just automatically happened in the post processor. It's never going to break the order of a single setup, but it's going to minimize the tool changes across the setups. The face mill's already in, just keep facing and move on to the next setups.
Yep. I don't know why I'm getting an error. It just worked a second ago. So how am I getting from one file or one CAD component 4 things? So what happens is the first operation is this. It's the top side, actually the bottom side of this. This is our 6x8 inch mini pallet that we sell. And so pretty standard, faces it. So cool to me. After I deck it off, I then go ahead and probe it. My probe is tool 99, and that updates the G54 or 55 for that part. I probably don't need to be redoing the Y because it's in a fixed jaw orange vise, so it doesn't move, but the X will move each time I put a part in, which is nice because I don't have to use vise stops anymore. And yes, you could get rid of the probing routine, but for me, I would rather slow it down a little and build great parts, and as I build confidence, I'll start leaning out things like probing. Because it takes a minute. You know, the Haas I bought is pretty slow on rapids compared to some other machines, but it makes great parts. So all that I've done here is under post-process, I've done a duplicate, so 2 of them. So with this, what this does is it does a G54 and a G55. So if we go back to the model side, there's a part here, and then there's another version of that part. it happens to be right here in the sort of the front side of the vise, but you don't even need that to exist, because all that I do at my machine controller is I probe in. This one is G54, and then I find this one, and I set that as my G55, and you're done, which is super cool. And that's how, by the way, the probing works. I didn't understand this until somebody showed me, but when you do updated probing, like midstream probing, you still need to tell your controller basically where it is, subject to the amount of over travel on each side. And so it's not creating the G54, the G55, but rather it's just slightly tweaking or updating it. And so the same part, just the flip side, I've got I don't know why I have two faces here. Oh, great example. I'm doing a much heavier cut where I'm doing climbing and conventional machining to get off the excess, and then I'm doing a separate recipe, climbing only, to get my surface finish. There's a mushroom cap left over that you guys are probably all familiar with.
Hey, John, you hit on another cool topic, and I don't want to keep interrupting, but if you go back to that facing operation, I noticed you're using the roll-in option for facing, which
absolutely
promotes. And then maybe one other thing, it's a little junky for me. Presentation's going well, but I just slow down the movements just a hair so that the video doesn't jump quite as much.
Sorry, guys. No one has ever told me I went too slow. Yeah, so under the facing, there's a thing called chip thinning, I believe that's it, which is going to roll your face mill into the part, which I believe helps with surface finish. It definitely, I'm told, helps with insert life, which when you start buying Sandvik inserts, all of a sudden you start caring about the insert life, because it ends up they're a little bit more expensive. But again, that's the dilemma. When you go buy a better machine, you want to feed it really good tooling to make great parts. So after that mushroom cap has been decked off, I've now exposed my final part, and that's what I want to probe. So this, I think, is really the great example of where I will probably always keep midstream probing. And sure, there are ways that you could secure the part with a stop and then pull the stop away, but I'll tell you, it's just such a confidence booster to me to know when we're trying to hold on some of these dimensions inside of a thou, I find that a Renishaw is better than a hard stop that I have to then remove, because at some point I want to walk all the way around the part. So what's cool is, again, that bottom operation starts at offset 3, so that's G56, and then it duplicates it to be G57. I don't know why that's not checked there. So that's, that isn't checked. That's I guess I turned that off for some reason the other day. So that's kind of funny to me. That's how I have one part with two sides, each duplicated, and so when we're running them on the machine, there's actually 4 identical work pieces in the machine running at the same time. I will switch over to this job shop job. So like I said, this is a job that we're going to run next week, and I'm excited because it's really the first job that we've run on the Haas where the customer is going to allow us to film it. So it'll be a whole video on this. Will be up on the NYCCNC YouTube channel probably next month. You guys saw me a minute ago apply that template. My belief with templates is put everything in your template, you know, all your different adaptive strategies, horizontals, chamfering, spot drill taps. In this case, my template is 2.5D, so this is not a template I would use for 3-dimensional surfacing type parts, because it's much easier to look through here and say, okay, you know what, I'm actually not doing any 120 degrees, I'm not tapping, I'm not going to do a horizontal, I'm not going to use the shear hog, so you can pick those and really quickly hit delete. It's much more satisfying to delete stuff out than it is to have to manually add things back in. So let's just walk through this. I would not do a probe. I will face it. I would actually not do, I'm trying to not to look at my first setup because I don't want to cheat. I would probably not do a 3D adaptive here. I want to control my, where I'm doing my 2D, because I'm going to want to machine I want to machine the inside and the outside probably with different parameters or different depths. So I will pick the inside for here, Control D duplicates it, and I could then choose the outside with passes model bottom. I don't want to walk through the whole part here, but rather just give you an idea. Don't need the shear hog, don't need horizontal, 2D contour I could use to clean up. I tend to move really fast when I'm camming up parts. I only say that because that's kind of just the pace of running a shop these days, I think. Chamfering, like so. I'm not going to use the 2D contour chamfer here. I don't need to. Drilling, I would probably drill these, two holes. And this is that Sandvik through spindle coolant drill, and they're pretty darn expensive. So it's another reason why I really like having a template, because in this case, this one's not, I don't have the template set at maximum speeds, but still, I don't want to accidentally goof and break a $200 drill or forget to have coolant set to through tool. Not tapping, not doing that, not tracing it. And then we have a chip fan from the folks at Lang, and let me tell you, that thing is incredible because I don't like grabbing the, let me fix this, bothering me. There we go. I really don't like opening the door and then using an air gun to blow off the coolant. So that chip fan comes down like a face mill, and when the spindle turns on, it actually blows the part off. I like it because for two reasons. One, I don't get messy and dirty and coolant on my clothes and skin, but also most of the time I'm not in front of the machine. So when I walk back over to the machine to swap a part out or do something, it's ready for me to do more work. So that's not the full part, but that gives you an idea, hopefully, of how we use templates. The last little thing I thought I'd show, and then we'll open it up to Q&A, is a trick I had. It's not really a trick, but we were running a job like this in Delrin, and I was so proud because I had done my, I was at a doctor's office waiting with my laptop, and I had done all my CAM, and I was super psyched to get back to the shop and run the part, and I realized, oh no, it's Delrin. I didn't want coolant used at all. So I realized I can select all of my CAM operations, right-click, compare and edit, type in coolant, edit all, air. Click OK, and you're done. And that was like I wanted to high-five somebody because I thought I was going to have to go into each operation and manually change it, which just is demoralizing. So compare and edit saves the day again. Let me go back real quick to my slide and see, was there anything else I didn't get into that was important? G68 is something that's become really important to us, which has to do with how we're holding some of our parts that we're really trying to hold tight to tolerances on. And I'm realizing that tramming each part in, even if your vise is perfect and soft jaws are perfect, I find that there may be some amount of error, 4 thousandths or 5 thousandths across 20 inches. So with the Renishaw probe and a Haas G68 command, and I believe the other controllers have this as well, it will actually update my whole coordinate system, or it'll rotate the whole coordinate system to compensate. So the extreme example is you could basically never tram your vise in, have your vise at a 4-degree angle, and it'll still make square parts. I don't encourage this, certainly at that degree, but for doing minor amounts of tweaking, it's phenomenal. I did want to mention as well for simulation, stock, no stock wireframe. So I'm a huge fan. When I go to simulate, I will often go to tail, stock, jump to the end of the toolpath, and then really important, turn off your light bulb at the top left where the CAD file is. That gets rid of the sort of CAD model backstopping your simulation, and you can see what the simulation or the toolpath is really creating. The other trick I like to do is, especially when I'm looking for collisions or drill depths, there's a little plugin app called Visual Styles. It's free in the Fusion 360 App Store. It lets me switch to the wireframe view really quickly. turn my part on, go back to no stock, and now what I can do with drills particular, or spot drills or chamfers, is I can zoom in, and with the wireframe view I can look exactly what height it's doing work at. So for instance here, that's showing a trick I like to do, which is I'm adapting out this logo, but when I come back in for the contour, see how in the wireframe view you can see that that blue toolpath or the control point is actually up off the bottom of the part. It's actually only 0.5 of an inch, so there's no practical implication to the functionality of the part. And by staying 0.5 thou above it, you avoid that little drag line that you often see where it looks like somebody traced a tool around the periphery of the thing. And then switching back into shaded mode is really easy, again, with that little toolbar pop-up. And okay, really the last thing, I haven't figured this out, but I figured if I put it in here, it'd be a good impetus to go figure it out. Apparently on the Haas, I can take a picture with my iPhone of a setup on the machine, and I can somehow store it in that job or file or something, which is incredible, because what that means is in 3 weeks when I go to rerun a job, I load my cam, and then I can literally open up a photo on the Haas controller. I hope I'm not wrong on this. I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong. And it'll show me the orientation of the soft jaws or the fixture or which ones I was using. That to me is like such a breath of fresh air for being lean and how I stay organized and make good parts. So I'm going to stop rambling there, but happy to answer questions.
Yeah, on the photo thing, you're right. There's a new G code in the next gen Haas Controls that allows you to call up. You can actually call the photo up in the NC code. So we've actually got a next gen Haas post that will show the tool image. In the case of HSM works, where we set up sheet pictures, we'll show that. See us continue to leverage this technology, but a great thing Haas is doing to move the ball forward and think about G-code as more than just instructions for the machine, but instructions for the operator too.
Yeah, it's just how many times have I picked up a set of soft jaws and thought which one was in the fixed jaw, or just the confidence that you're using the right part is amazing.
There's a question from David, how long until you think this is available? I think you're referring to that G-code on the Haas machine, and if I'm not mistaken, it's available now. It is a paid option from what I understand, but you might want to check with Haas on that. Compare and edit. I'm glad you like compare and edit. Mike is talking about compare and edit here. Great tool. I think I said this on one of the past webinars, but there's many things you can do in the compare and edit dialog. Maybe, John, you can open that up. One of the additional things you can do is set your defaults for drop-downs and checkboxes in compare and edit. You can't set those defaults inside of an operation, but from within the compare and edit dialog, you can actually set defaults for drop-downs and checkboxes also. With the exception of setups, and thank you for calling me out, John. Let's try and get that fixed for you.
Yeah, compare and edit's great. The other trick is if you're comparing adaptives across two different parts, edit, and then on the bottom left, you can choose different, and it'll go ahead and show you all of the parameters that are different between the two. So if you're, I find this, it's helpful for mill stuff. Where it's really helpful is on lathe operations, because sometimes I find it difficult with, especially with ID lathe work, like boring, to get the same tool path. And I'm like, how the hell did I do that? I did it before, why can't I replicate it? So being able to use compare and edit to see what exactly, where parameters are differing is super helpful.
Yeah, I mean, another great thing you said, sometimes first articles you run a little slower. Maybe you also have higher retract planes, so compare and edit's a great way to change the clearance planes and things for all operations at once.
Right.
I am seeing a question in regards to having multiple work offsets, and does it work in Inventor HSM? Yes, that works in all three of the products. If you're doing multiple of the same part, want new work offsets, and it's in the setup, multiple work offsets. If it's multiple different setups, I use that post option, but yes, that's in all three products.
Al, can you remind me, I was wondering about this the other day, why is it that, because I think there's a good explanation, why is it that WC offset 0 and 1 are both G54?
effectively, the post is controlling what your first work offset is, and it's basically a table in the post process. So this is a list of work offsets. So 0 is just taking the first row in the table. So where this is helpful is, let's say you set it to 1 and you post to the Haas, you get G54. If you post to your Fidal, you're going to get E1. But we're pulling the first work offset from the table in the Haas.
Okay. Okay.
Kyle is wondering why probing is not in HSM works. Probing is a very intensive UI thing that we did. Obviously, we're part of Autodesk now, so we do all of our UI work first inside of the Autodesk-based products. Kernel things easily show up across the products because it's completely shared, but the UI stuff is a little bit different. So that's why you're seeing probing and better HSM in Fusion now and not yet in HSM Works. Several questions around the recording. Yeah, Wayne usually has the recordings up live on YouTube by the end of the day, and then also if you're not part of the forums, Seth will kick me for not making sure everybody knows about the forums and is engaged in the conversation. So I'm going to say it, and then also you can look there. We put the recordings there as well, generally, as well as links to any files we can. Now these files are John, so it's up to him as to what he wants to share.
Yeah, so we share a lot of our CAD and CAM files for the folks that support our channel on Patreon. So it's sort of a give-get thing where it gives folks the chance to throw a couple bucks our way each month. It's really not much, and then we tend to share everything that we're allowed to share. We throw on Patreon, including one of the more popular ones has been this template file. And as we continue to update it, it's a chance for you to kind of see what tools we're using and the speeds and feeds we're running them at. And again, this has been something that I love. And actually, Al, I saw the update. How, without putting you on the spot, can I get that working with templates in the cloud? Because I thought I turned on. So do I have to enable cloud libraries from each computer I have Fusion on? Is that what I have to do? I did that somewhere.
It is an install-based preference, which is kind of silly, and it should be on by default. It's annoying to you.
Because I thought I did that on, I mean, I use Fusion on 5 or 6 different computers. I thought I had done it on one, but perhaps I have to do them on them all?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll work on that. Having templates in the cloud will be phenomenal. And as I understand it, you're now supposed to be allowing that?
Yep. It's called the Asset Libraries folder, and in that Asset Libraries folder, you're initially seeing. So if you go to your data panel, you'll see Asset Libraries, and from there you can see host, tool libraries, and template files.
Oh, very cool. So I can check it. Okay, great.
Yeah. So while you're doing that, I just want to address specifically. There's a lot of questions around this multiple work offsets thing, which I think is very powerful. There's several ways you can post multiple parts together at different work offsets. The first is if I have one part that I want to run on 5 vices. In the setup, you can say multiple work offsets, and I want to do it, increment the work offset by 1 and make 5 of these. So we'll make 5 of the same part, one at G54, one at G55, one at G56. So that's from the setup if it's 5 of the same thing. The other option is when you have 5 different programs at 5 different work offsets. In that case, you can see John has several setups, in this case 3 setups. Each one of them, setups would be work offset 1, the next setup would be work offset 2, and so on. And then you're going to multi-select them, so select all of them at the same time, and then he's going to hit post-process. And from there in the post dialog, you're going to see a small checkbox. You're going to see an error that's saying, okay, just be careful, you're posting multiple programs together, so we're going to warn you that it could cause problems. The default post is going to retract the machine fully between jumping, but let's say okay to that, John, and then right down below where it says document units, reorder to minimize tool changes. There's a checkbox there. That's how we optimized the tool changes across the setups when posting multiples.
Of all the things I've done, too, to be conservative, when I first run this on the Haas, I will go in after I probe my Z heights for my 3 or 4 offsets. I will add 3 or 4 inches of Z, or probably pick a number, 3 inches, and I will air cut all of these just to make sure, because for me, not having a huge amount of confidence and kind of venturing into unknown territory, For instance, there was a very small bug early on where the probing wasn't updating the coordinate locations doing midstreaming probing with multiple offsets. That quickly got fixed. Kudos to the Fusion and HSM team for getting that fixed so quickly, but I'm glad that I had air cut first to make sure I saw what was going on.
Okay, so a couple more questions on this. We're quickly running out of time, and I apologize, but we've got a weekly hangout, so you guys can always come back again next week too. So the question Seth is asking, does it ignore multiple uses of the tool? So really what this minimized tool changes is what we call a traveling salesman algorithm. I'm done at this shop, but I've already got all these parts in my car. What's the next shop that needs these parts? So I'm going to use the half-inch tool for all the cases that's needed on this setup. But before going to get a new tool for this setup, it's going and saying, because one of my other setups is the next tool that's needed, the tool that I already have. And if that's the case, it's going to go and do that. So it's not about, hopefully that helps understand what's going on. In regards to sub-programs, it's the last question we'll take here. We're working on a Haas post that will leverage sub-programs. Once that's out in beta, we'll look at applying that logic across multiple post-processors.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you. This is the second time John's come, so thank you again for joining us, and maybe just a shout out to some of the others on the call. If you have something you want to share with the wider community, happy to give you plugs for your own business as well. You do it. If you want to share some stuff with the community, reach out to us, and we'd love to have you also.
So, hey, Al, I just wanted to plug out there, you know, John hit on AU. You know, this is, we're starting a new track called our Fast Track, and, you know, these weekly webinars are part of that. Our Road to AU, you know, that's something that we're really focusing quite a bit on. So, you know, if you see Fast Track out there, it's basically these webinars. We've got local seminars coming up. We did one at John's place in Zanesville a few weeks ago. And then we'll be talking more and more about AU. So just kind of a plug, and also wanted to thank John. These are awesome. Really appreciate his help and support here. So thanks much, guys.
Absolutely. Garen, thanks for that update. John, thanks for joining us. Al, always a pleasure. Wayne, you make it all happen. There's a huge team that is working behind the scenes to help everybody out, and we're really laser focused on building that community. So if there's something that you want to see in the product, I just want to point out a couple quick things. And to Garen's point, the fast tracks, we're going to have, last year we did high-speed machining events. This year we're going to have the fast tracks. It's going to be amazing. We've got AU, and AU is kind of the mecca, but there's this road to AU we really want to have everybody join us for. Real quick, we've got the free software for students here with the Autodesk education program. So if you have any friends or family that are students or educators, they get access to all this technology for free. It's really easy. They just have to do a quick Google search for Autodesk education. It'll bring you here. You can access whatever technology you'd like to get from here. It's just a phenomenal program. This is our forum. Again, world's most active CAM forum, so take advantage of this. Really great stuff. If you, just like John often has times where he wants to see something in the product, well, John's got a really great relationship with Al. You can probably just give him a ring or send him a text message. But if you guys want to influence the direction of a product, you can come in here to the idea station. Whatever product you're working on, you have the ability to influence exactly what goes into that product, and our own users will upvote these ideas. You can see here they want to add a sim option. We got 1 vote for that. So just a phenomenal way that we've been able to listen to our community and make the product better. That's ultimately our goal every single day, is to make you guys more successful. One of the ways that we do that is through the AKN, the Autodesk Knowledge Network. So if you don't have this bookmark, please bookmark this right now, the Autodesk Knowledge Network. You can get all the resources that you need in one spot. It's a really great resource. And as always, you can come to our main website and you can navigate across this ribbon bar here for any questions you might have. There's a whole learning track around this technology as well. So please take a look. And lastly, please go out there, if you haven't already, type in NYC CNC right now. Go to the YouTube channel and click that subscribe button. When you subscribe, a real great benefit. Not only do you get all this awesome content that John's putting together, but you'll get an alert in your email when he loads up a new video. So really great stuff. With that, this has been your Friday.
Quick thing, not with that yet, because Seth is kicking me through the comments.
Sure.
Fusion form too. There's also a Fusion form. We have a lot of users from the Fusion community on our webinar today, so don't forget about that Fusion form, as well as the HSM specific form.
Absolutely. So with that, thank you so much, everyone. This has been your Friday HSM Hangout, and please join us next week where we're going to have more exciting content. And if there's ever something that you really want us to cover, but we just haven't yet, send us an email. It's just the first dot last name at Autodesk for any employee at Autodesk, and we always love interacting with everyone. So have a great weekend. Take care.